one happy spring break week where you've gone nowhere and done nothing.
That's right, and I don't plan to because I am breaking spring break, and that's exactly what I talked about this week was
I
getting
love
out
it.
of my 10-year repetitious behavior of getting as far away from my life as humanly possible during that coveted spring break that all of us educators love so much. And
So
yeah, we did something different.
I thought the story of what compelled you to make sure you traveled during spring
Mm,
break, i.e., the death of your dad, was very compelling. And at the same time, having the courage to say, okay, that worked for me during that season. And now I'm transitioning into a different season. And at least for this year, we're going to stay home and do this. So how's that been going?
it's been such a breath of fresh air. This has been the best adventure I've been on in a long time. Not
Love
the
it.
easiest, but one of the best. And it's because I'm kind of forced to sit in the here and now and work diligently by choice towards something that I know is just around the corner. And
Hmm.
it's exciting. It takes a lot of sacrifice and self-discipline that some days come easier than others. But yeah, like when you're working for something, it's so easy to want to just put it off, right? Just like the laundry, I'll do it another day, or how about next week? And we can just come up with all these excuses. And then also on the other side of that is that we can become so busy with other things like traveling or our jobs or other things that might be a little bit more enticing that we kind of abandon and we bail on ourselves, we bail on our dreams. And so this year we said, this is it. Not only is it helping me focus, right, on writing my book and kind of thinking about what my next chapter looks like in the coming months, but also financially, right? Because like Walt Disney said, it takes a lot of money to make these dreams come true. And so,
And
the
so Eric
several,
is like, whoo.
oh, yeah, he is loving. I've never seen the man so happy, Jeff,
I gotta go nowhere. I don't have to spend any money.
right? He's like, I think he started to feel a little bad too, kind of like, what do I do with myself? Just yesterday, he said, well, maybe we should just like go out to a nice dinner or something. And I'm like, we really don't have to even do that. He's like, yeah.
Right.
So
I love
it's
it.
good. It's a
So
reset of focus and our finances.
I'll tell this story, which I don't talk about very often, but I think you'll find it encouraging. When I was in my doctoral program,
Mm,
it was 2 years of classwork and then up to 4 years of dissertation writing. So it was a
mhm.
6-year program. You could be done in 2 years if you did the dissertation writing while you did the classes, but then you had, 4 years once the coursework was done. Well, of
Wow.
course, I didn't do any dissertation writing while I was in the classes.
Why
And then
would
I
you?
transitioned into exactly. And then I transitioned into a full-time position. And I had every reason, every excuse in the world for, why I'm not writing today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, you name it. And all of a sudden I found myself in six and I was staring at the dreaded everything but a dissertation, kind of doctorate PhD, and those folks are a dime a dozen.
Mm,
And so I had until the end of August 1995. And sometime, I want to say like March or April, it wasn't spring break, I wasn't in higher ed, but I took a week off from work.
mm.
And that was it. I was going to lock in, I was gonna buckle down. We were going to, start cranking it out. We were gonna build some momentum and finally get this writing done and this dissertation behind us. And
Mhm.
I vividly remember waking up on Monday morning, and my first thought was, "Well, we haven't had a day off in a while.
Of course.
We got a week, right?
Right.
So, there's no need to, like, write today," and that became the pattern.
Mm.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Ugh.
Thursday, Friday, Sat and I remember sitting in my home office late Sunday night, and I don't know that I've ever been more scared.
Oh my word.
And I knew because I had wasted the entire week, and I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I went back to work on Monday morning, not having written anything,
Mm.
it might as well already be the end of August. I was done. I was washing out. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And I looked at my desk and I had a pad of paper I'm going to grab this piece of paper here real quick. I had
Mhm.
a pad of paper that was like this size, so like half
Mm.
a sheet.
Mhm.
And my immediate thought was, I do not have enough information. I do not know enough to write a 300-page doctoral dissertation on the obscure and ridiculous topic that I have chosen to write on.
Yeah.
But I know enough to fill this page.
There you
And
go.
so I grabbed it and I wrote what I knew. And then the next day I did that again
Mm.
and again and again. And there was never another day that I didn't fill at least one of those pages. And
Wow.
believe it or not, just that habit, that mini habit of writing resulted in me finishing the darn thing in about 6 weeks.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, like I kudos to you because I don't think you got up on Monday and said, I haven't had a day off in a while. You've been cranking it out, right?
I have been because I know
Awesome.
firsthand what happens once you stop that momentum. It's
That's right.
really hard to get
Yep.
back into it.
Object in motion stays in motion. Object in rest stays at
Stays
rest.
in
So
rest.
good,
Absolutely.
good job.
Well, speaking of spring break, you got to use the California spring break, right? Because your spring break was last week, and
Right.
you got to do the opposite. You actually got out of town. Tell us about that.
So it's interesting. I'm not in higher ed anymore, so I don't really have spring break per se, but I experienced spring break as if I were still in higher ed. And I wrote about that.
Mhm.
So ever since spring of 2012, I have been connected to a national honors society called Alpha Chi, which honors the top 10% of juniors and seniors, regardless of academic
Mm.
major or discipline. It's one of only two such honor societies around the country. And over the years, I would take students to their national convention, usually around the week of spring break. So sometimes I would get that week off. Sometimes I would end up taking kids to places like Baltimore and
Mm.
Nashville, St. Louis, Chicago, Portland, Austin, fun places. And when I left in 2022, having served as a chapter sponsor here in California and then Region 7 president on the West Coast and on their national council the final year in Austin, their executive director, Laura Noah, said to me, if we're ever in Anaheim or Orlando, you are our first call. You're going to be our keynote speaker. Well, last week she kept that promise. And
Ah,
Lindsay and I flew out on Wednesday. We were in Epcot on Wednesday night. Thursday was the keynote to the kids in Alpha Chi. And then Friday was Magic Kingdom. And then back home on Saturday. And what was interesting about that experience is, first of all, I was connecting back with colleagues that I haven't seen in 4 years. The students change, of course, but
right.
the faculty advisors and the administrators, they're pretty much the same. And they were excited to see me. I was excited to see them. I'm in a completely different, role now. Instead of being Dr. Barnes, I'm, Dr. Disneyland. And it was a dream come true for me in the place where what? Where dreams come
Dreams
true. So
come true.
that was really cool. In the middle of the presentation, and I wrote about this,
Mm.
I was missing a slide. And then at the very end, I had the wrong slide. And here I am in front of, students who are like top 10%. These are like high performers.
No
And
pressure.
I'm up there, right. And I'm up there, mangling the slide deck and, fumbling the stories. And then I get to the very end
Mm.
and the entire room erupts not just in applause, but standing ovation. I was shocked
Wow.
because all I can think about is, well, what about the missing slide in the middle of the presentation? What about the ending where I had to tell a completely different story because I had the wrong image up in the slide deck? And then I
Right.
realized I'm the only one who knew that
Mm.
any of that, right? And I
Yeah.
can tell you, and this was a really good reminder, because by and large, I worked with struggling students. The
Yeah.
students who weren't in the top 10% of
Right.
juniors and seniors
You
and,
worked with students like
weren't
me.
well, I don't know. You're
No,
showing
probably
up
not
for
that
spring
bad.
break doing the writing better than I did.
Right.
But these were students who, they could do the work, but they simply weren't showing up for the work, right?
Yeah.
They weren't going to class, they weren't turning in their assignments, they weren't taking the test. But then every now and again, I would have a high performing student show up and they needed a lot of advice and a lot of counseling and a lot of mentorship around anxiety
Mm,
and the challenge with perfection. And if it wasn't perfect, why bother?
yeah.
Why show up? And so the gap between the students who struggled and the students who were thriving is not nearly as big as you might imagine.
Right.
And I was reminded of that on Thursday night. What's going on between our ears is way different than what people are seeing while we're on stage. More often than not, we just need to show up,
Right.
be who we are, be real, be authentic, and folks are going to respond and usually respond favorably as a result of that. So I love that you're showing up and writing the book. And the Alpha Chi folks loved that Lindsay and I were able to show up last week. It was good to be home, and I don't mean home at Walt Disney World. I mean
Right.
home with my academic colleagues at Alpha Chi
I love that. And I think it was such an amazing full circle moment to read your article as a fellow storyteller, as a fellow writer, and as,
and
a
teacher.
hopeful public speaker and teacher. Because our working relationship, you have, of course, sailed way beyond where I'm at now before I've been able to get there. And you've accomplished a lot. And you've written the books that I can only dream about. And so to see someone like you still kind of have those whoops moments or those moments of insecurity or those moments of self doubt, you're
Oh,
right.
you have no
That
idea.
chasm is so much smaller than what we think. We think that like the haves are here and the have nots are here, or, the successful people are here and we're down here. But when in reality, I think we really are battling with those same demons. It's just how we force our perspective on those demons and decide to power through it to continue
Yeah.
to choose to show up. So thank you for
Yep.
that very
Yep.
timely reminder.
Yep. 90% of life is showing up, whether it's showing up to write your book during spring break, whether it's showing up to class, whether it's showing up for your kids, for your spouse, for your dream, right? And last week I was able to show up on a stage. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up with energy and passion and appreciation, and the room responded in kind, and I will forever be grateful.
I love that. And before we hit the road, I just have to say what a timely it does say show up. It's hard to see, but it was in
I
remembrance
love
of
it.
my father with his paper
There you
airplane.
go.
So again, full circle. It's all about showing up.
There you go. All right. Well, happy spring break, everyone. And we are recording on St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day. And we're going to hit a milestone next week with episode number 10.
We'll see you guys real soon.